and bring in our international affairs commentator, Douglas Herbert. Doug, Russia continues to issue these denials, but new satellite imagery seems to be telling a different story.
Yeah, they can deny and issue these broad blanket denials as much as they want, but more and more the evidence is flying in the face and showing the lie to the propaganda machine. Look, what the latest evidence is there was an analysis conducted jointly by the New York Times based on images from Maxar Technologies, which has been providing a lot of satellite imagery of what's going on the ground in this conflict, throughout the conflict. Really helping investigators, forensic detectives to analyze the truth, get to the facts of what's going on. And they have analyzed photos of the killings of civilians in Bucha. And basically what these photos do in a nutshell, and I'll explain what we're seeing, is they are a rebuttal of the claims by the Russian state-controlled media that the killings of these civilians in Bucha took place after the Russian soldiers had left the town. The Russian propaganda, one of their narratives, because they say a lot of things that are contradictory. There's a lot of conspiracy mongering, and it depends who you're listening to at any given moment. But one of their claims is that the bodies in these photos lying on the ground, these apparently dead bodies, were placed there by Ukrainian radicals, as they're called, or Nazis, after the Russian soldiers had left Bucha somewhere around March 30th. Now, that's according to the Russian Defense Ministry's own post on Telegram. Yep. Now, what do the photos show? The photos provided by Maxar and analyzed by an investigative team at the New York Times show objects. I'm saying objects because upon closer examination, it's clear that they are bodies on the grounds in the exact location that the Ukrainian forces discovered these bodies in the past couple of days over the weekend when they came into the town, in the exact position and the exact number of them. And what the further analysis shows is that many of these bodies, about 11 of them, had been there since more than three weeks, from about March 11th. Why is that significant? More than 3 weeks, because you just heard me say the Russian narrative is that these bodies were placed there by Ukrainian, in quotes, Nazis, trying to provoke, as a provocation to try to discredit, to tar Russia in the eyes of the world and bring more sanctions upon poor, innocent Russia. What this narrative shows is these bodies have been there for weeks during a time in early to mid-March when the Russians controlled Bucha. Not me saying when the Russians controlled Bucha, when the Russians, on their own acknowledgement, controlled Bucha. So you're going to get more and more of this evidence, but this is based on close scrutiny of both video and both photo imagery, close scrutiny of the photos and what they're showing, geolocating the shape of the objects, of the bodies, where they are, when these photos were taken. We're going to see more of this coming forth. But generally, it shows the lie to the Russian propaganda. And I will note that right now, it is, according to the Russian prosecutors, if you publicly blame Russia, if you're Russian in Russia, publicly blame Russia for the atrocities, the killings of civilians in Bucha, you risk facing prosecution.
And despite all this, despite these images, satellite images, etc., the Kremlin continues to push its narrative.
Yeah, and we've heard what that narrative is. The narrative is contradictory because they're trying to come up with some sort of coherent theme. As more and more evidence, the truth will out, as they say. As more and more evidence emerges showing what actually happened and pointing more and more overwhelmingly to the fact that these were atrocities committed at the hands of Russian soldiers. Obviously, yes, investigators will have to get to the very bottom of it, but showing the lie to the Russian narrative, you have an interesting phenomenon at work here. You have Putin's ratings soaring. His ratings now over 80%, around 83%. You actually have this perverse mechanism at work where the Russians, steeped in this virulent state propaganda, and this narrative is, as Gulliver, we heard him saying earlier in Ukraine, that narrative that Ukraine needs to be denazified, that not just Zelensky and his government, but that all Ukrainians are potentially Nazi elements that need to be rooted out. That narrative is leading to a sense of both a sense of anti-Ukrainian sentiments in Russia, but also whipping up Russian patriotism and perversely doubling down by Russians, many Russians who only get their news from state-controlled TV media, doubling down in their support of Putin and the sense that he is waging a just war against a threatening Nazi-teeming state. It sounds ludicrous when I stand here and say it that way, but this is a narrative that tens of millions of Russians right now not only accept, but embrace. So I end you with the fact that that narrative in Russia, Putin more popular than ever, support for the war is higher, and the narrative that seems ludicrous to us that these were not Ukrainian Nazis placing bodies in the street to discredit Russia, that is a narrative that is readily believed and embraced by many, many Russians.
Doug, thank you very much for that. Douglas Herbert there.